Hey gang, welcome back to another episode of Better Call Sexton. Have we got a docket for you today? Remember, at the start, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all those crazy things. It helps the channel and it'll give you the first word when we have new episodes put up every week. First up on our docket, is marriage back? An official study gives us the answer. Menodivorce, gray divorce. How are grandma and grandpa gonna split their silverware or those creepy little ceramic dolls that grandma has in a cabinet somewhere? Shreking, a new trend in dating that is not nearly as fun as the movies, but has 100% less Eddie Murphy. And as always, we take a look at submissions from you guys from sextonshow.com. Let's get after it.
So, Jim, according to the Institute for Family Studies, marriage is back.
Marriage is back, baby. That's good. I mean, it's good for my business model because we suck at it. So that's fantastic news.
So the article, is marriage back? Divorce rate is down. Family stability is up.
I forgot to tell you, we're going to have to make some cuts on you, buddy. Sorry. Yeah, divorce rate's down.
Uh-oh.
It's going to be tough times. You're going to have to cut back on rations. Sorry.
So the article, it's a long one, and if viewers want to check it out, they absolutely should. But it goes over various, groups, people, demographics, talks about marriage, family stability. Are parents together? Are they separate? And what they found is that across the board, there seems to be a rise in marriage stability, marriage satisfaction, and a decrease in the divorce rate. What are we thinking about this?
I mean, look, this happens. It fluctuates from time to time, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. It's not, sometimes they're economic factors, sometimes they're socioeconomic factors, sometimes they're cultural factors, sometimes they're part of whatever's going on in the zeitgeist at any particular time. But yeah, right now there seems to be, this decrease that's happening and an increase conversely. And, what do we make of that? I think when you look at some of the demographics that are talked about in the article, it's an even weirder and deeper metric. And I think that there's a lot of variables at play. We're looking at a multivariate equation here. This isn't checkers, it's chess. And I think when you look at it, you see that there's a lot of factors in play. The biggest predictors of marriage satisfaction and divorce are socioeconomic factors. And that's true across all ethnicities. It's true across all demographics, that if people are making a living wage, if people are struggling financially, they have a harder time staying together. So that has always been true. And I think in positive economic times, we very often see an increase in the marriage rate, a decrease in the divorce rate. In challenging economic times, we see an increase in the divorce rate, a decrease in the marriage rate. But sometimes we see the opposite of that as well. And again, I think it's because it's a multivariate equation. It's very hard to track it. I get asked constantly, hey, people who live together or don't live together, are they more likely to get divorced? In my observation. And again, I'm not a researcher. I'm not doing double-blind studies here, folks. I'm a divorce lawyer. I'm reporting the news as I see it. I'm telling you, it's like NWA when they were like, hey, I didn't make gang violence. I'm just reporting what's going out here on the streets. Same thing for me. I'm just telling you, the people sitting in front of me every single day, putting the demise of unhappy marriages together. This is what I've put together from watching those people in real time. I'm not in a lab. I'm not wearing a white coat. I'm not handing out questionnaires because I know people are full of shit 90% of the time anyway. I'm telling you the dead honest truth from who's sitting across from me at the conference table or who's sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom, and what I hear and what I see from people, because people tell their divorce lawyer the truth. They lie to their therapist. They lie to their doctor. They lie to each other. They usually don't lie to their lawyer because there's just no reason to. So I'm just telling you how it is. And that's what these studies are doing too. They're trying to correlate data. And what you're finding is it's such a multivariate equation that it's really, really hard to find patterns of note and patterns that we can do much of anything with.
What we have two articles actually, but they're kind of related. Go to the same question.
You make me read so much. It's like the roles have reversed. When you were a kid, I had to force you to read all the time, and now I'm getting old, and you're forcing me to read all the time, and you don't even have the courtesy to give me my reading glasses.
So our first is from they're from the New York Post and People, which that's
wow.
Yeah,
wow, two bastions of journalism. That's really great. We went from The Atlantic in the last episode to now talking about the New York Post and People magazine, by the way, both of which I've been featured in the last few months. I apologize. I'm sorry. Can we delete that whole segment? Because New York Post, People magazine, you guys are the best and you have excellent taste in lawyers.
So from New York Post first, we have Menodivorce is on the rise. Middle-aged women leaving marriages as
there's
menopause.
Gotta be a more dignified term than that. I just feel like Menodivorce just I don't know, it either sounds like the dumbest Marvel Comics villain ever, or like, I don't know, Menodivorce. It's just like a woman having a hot flash in a courtroom. That's all I can imagine.
Well, they're saying, so from a couple people they interviewed, they're saying that the time in which they wanted to get divorced was coinciding with when menopause set in. And they're thinking that this new wave, or I guess lack of hormones, is causing resentment with the husband, and it kind of changes the dynamic of the relationship.
Could you imagine if this is like the female version of post-nut clarity? You know what I mean? That like when suddenly like their estrogen levels go down, they're like, hey, wait a minute, this guy sucks. You know, like they're being hit, like all of the flood of hormones that's going through them, all of the oxytocin and all of the estrogen that's in their system is like diminishing as they reach perimenopause and menopause. And maybe they suddenly like it takes the glasses off of them and they're like, holy shit, like these were a ton of red flags. How did I miss this? I was like caught up in like a estrogen haze where I thought that this guy was awesome. And it turns out that he sucks. It could be a function of that. Who knows?
So our second thing, which is a little more in-depth, comes from NPR, from All Things Considered with Elsa Chang and Brittany Luce. They asked the question, what's behind the trend of so-called gray divorces?
Everybody's talking about gray divorce, man. Gray divorce is on everybody's mouth right now, and I get asked so many questions in the press about gray divorce. I've commented on so many articles for so many publications, international and domestic, on gray divorce. Yeah, we're seeing an uptick in senior citizen divorces.
Are these things tied? Menodivorce and gray divorce? You think they're...
You know, I mean, I think all divorce is tied in some ways because they arise from some of the same sets of issues. But gray divorce is definitely much more of an acknowledged phenomenon. And I think that it's a function of the fact that people reach a stage in life where their children are grown, self-supporting, married, maybe have their own children. And they now really only have their ties to each other to keep them together because their children are self-sustaining. They've fulfilled the biological imperative, and they find themselves saying, what are we doing here together? I think this is also a function of longevity. I mean, look, I've said it before, the average human lifespan in the 1800s was like 32 years old. So we're now talking about people in their 60s and 70s making the decision to divorce because theoretically they could have another 20 years of life ahead of them. And yeah, maybe they're the like adult diaper and soup eating years, a lot of them towards the tail end. But, you can still have some life in there. You can still have some vibrance in those years. And sometimes people are looking at it and saying, why am I staying together with a person who doesn't make me happy or in fact makes me unhappy when I would be just as happy to be alone? If you're going to rob me of my solitude, you owe me companionship. And I think that's true of every age in divorce. But I think once you've got your family, your children stable, they've kind of moved on, they're adults themselves, they're in their own lives, and they're starting to look after you in a parentified kind of way. Sometimes that's a wake-up call for people. I'm not there yet in terms of age, but, I'm closer to that than I am to my 20s. And the truth is, I think the older you get, the fewer fucks you have to give. Your fuck field is barren as you reach a certain age. I know mine is starting to be on its last crops. So I'm not surprised to hear this. I think gray divorce is going to be here for a while. I think it's really a function of longevity. I also have to tell you too, man, erectile dysfunction medication. If aliens come down to, the planet Earth and they look at the United States, they are going to think the number one health concern in the United States and of the human species is erectile dysfunction, because we have spent more time and money making sure that 80-year-old men get boners than we have trying to deal with breast cancer or lung cancer or any number of other things, like including heart disease, which is the number one killer of men and women. So, this is, I think, a function of that we've actually, with TRT and with other hormone therapies for women as well, we've prolonged people's sort of sexual, performance and their ability to sort of continue to be vibrant as they get into old age. But one of the second order effects of that is people are going to continue to have a high sex drive. They're going to continue to look for multiple partners. And we're going to continue to have the problems that people used to have in their 20s and 30s and 40s. Now people are having in their 70s and 80s, but they have fewer ties at that point, and they have less incentive to stay together because they don't have things connecting them other than this piece of paper that they signed on for 30 or 40 years ago.
So we have our news report here from NBC, big channel here.
Ding, ding, ding.
About Shreking, or intentionally dating someone ugly so that they'll treat you well.
I mean, there's an argument to be made that is a smart technology. A wise man once said, marry or date someone who is just attractive enough to turn you on enough to want to have sex with them. You go any higher than that, you're playing above the rim. And there's a power dynamic that's going to be screwed up. You're going to have an imbalance of power between the two of you. If you're an 8 and she's a 10, or if she's a 5 and you're a 7, there's a power imbalance there. And I think that is something that people are starting to realize. And they're saying, wait a minute, work smarter, not harder. This might be a good idea. Like if a person's baseline level of attractiveness is enough that you're happy to be having sex with them, then, do you really need to have all the bells and whistles? Do you really need to have you can buy a really nice car. You don't have to get every single one of the features and premium packages that they offer. It'll get you from point A to point B. So I think there are people taking again, this is like the prenup trend. People are taking a practical, pragmatic approach to relationships because we got to try something, man. This could be a Hail Mary pass because we are having a hard time out there. It is hard out there for single people to find meaningful connection and to sustain meaningful connection. So this could be another way of doing that. Once again, Gen Z coming up with a term for it. This is like Gen Z is like the masters of naming things. They just give names to stuff. Oh, this is great. Okay. Wow. For the producer, that's you. What was it like? By the way, for those of you who don't know, some people have figured it out in the comments. William is my son. Yes, he is my younger son. Say hello, William. You've heard him. He's like a voice. He's like the voice of God speaking in there. That's his hand. That's right. See, don't we have similar hands? Look at that. There we go. For the producer, what was it like having James as a father growing up? Should I leave the room for this one? I'm
man.
a little...
No, I generally have positive things to say.
All right, generally positive. Here we go.
What I've noticed is that, growing up, most people have to learn what divorce is. They have to learn about that, whether it's a kid in school gets a divorce, maybe their own parents get divorced. And, because prior to that, when a child is first born and first growing up, the first institution in society that they're exposed to is mommy and daddy. That's their first experience with any kind of institution. And obviously, that's a relationship. These are two people we're talking about. But when I say institution, I mean a system. In their minds, the child, mommy's there. Mommy makes the best cookies. She is caring, loving. She plays her role. Daddy's there. He's the strongest. He's a superhero. He can get to the high shelves and jars. There's a system here. Mommy and daddy love each other. This is a part of their first introduction to an institution in society, like how Freud talks about or whatever. And divorce is a shattering of that. It is. This is why for so many young kids, and I imagine you could speak on this, Dad, is that, it is a shattering of not only this familiar relationship, but it's the first time in which this facade of an institution is sort of shattered on them. For me, I don't remember a time in my life in which I didn't understand what divorce was. I mean, since I was very, very little, I understood that mommy and daddy was not a permanent thing. And that my father, my daddy, pause, that's a little weird, but my father played a role in facilitating that breakdown. But a lot of people have asked me if that would spawn cynicism or sort of a dystopic outlook on it. But I would say really it's the opposite. I think what it taught me was, one, that institutions are man-made. And this extends to a variety of things. This is not just the institution of marriage, the institution of academia, of government, of whatever. I mean, it shows that these things are man-made. And yet...
We made you into an iconoclast. I love that.
I think what it taught me was that nothing is permanent and that it necessitates questioning, and that questioning is not negative. It's not, when you question something, you're not destroying it. When you question something, you're not saying, I want this gone. You're asking, why does it work this way and how can we improve it? And I think all being my father's son has really given me in terms of relationship outlook, because I assume that's what they're asking, is that these things should be questioned, that if you're in a relationship with anybody, you should question how things are working, your dynamic, the dynamic between you two, the value of marriage, the value of it as a technology, not so you can blow up your relationships and blow up your life, but to say, how can we do this the best? And really, it's yielded positive results. I mean, I'm very amicable with all of my ex-girlfriends. That's a little too personal.
I've actually been very proud of you for that. I like to take some credit for that. I like to think that the relationship I have with your mom after our divorce when you were very young and all the way through was a model in some way for that. I actually think you and your brother have in common, maybe more so you than your brother, that you're both really, you speak positively of your exes. I've never really heard you trash talk your exes. And I always respected that about you. That was the kind of man I wanted to raise you to be. So I was hoping that it was a function of example, but
I think another thing that it taught me, going back to the whole institution thing, is that you can make whatever you want out of situations. I saw in your guys' divorce that it's an inherently negative thing. Like no one's I don't.
Sure.
I'm going to assume that when you and Ma got divorced, you guys weren't like stoked about it. Like it
was incredibly frightening for me.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. And so, but what you guys made from it was so positive. And so I think what it kind of taught me was that, and I'm like this in all aspects of life, is that when something negative comes your way, it's what you do with it. What I see now is people talk about their exes so negatively, or they're like, I see, being around you, because obviously we're kind of around your work, these like messy breakups. And really what comes to my mind is like, dude, why are you doing all this? Because I've seen you and Ma work through so much and do these great things out of this sad situation, out of this inherently negative situation, divorce. You guys took it and have both made great lives, both made great we're literally on your show right now. And so I look at people acting negatively to one another, being unforgiving of one another, and I'm like, dude, we don't have to do that. Like, you can just skip that part and you can be nice to one another.
Yeah, it's, I'm not surprised to hear that you think growing up in the environment that you did with your mom and I, separate but together, that it gave you a unique worldview. I've never heard you articulate it like that before. It's really interesting. I'm really glad we got this viewer question. It was not from me, but it's an interesting thing to hear you answer, because
it's probably from Kevin, because he's always trying to get me to.
He's always trying to get you to open up.
He's trying to get me to talk about you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, man. It's a good answer. Would I have liked you to just go, oh my God, it was awesome, he's the best dad in the whole wide world? Probably, but that would be a very hollow answer. I think that's...
No, let me actually follow up by saying, because so people don't, because I've noticed because by the way, I manage a fair amount of Jim's social media.
A fair amount? You manage all of it.
That's true. That's true. And so, not your Instagram. I don't see your Instagram.
Well, listen, I gotta have some privacy.
Yeah, but everything else, so if anyone here is DMing my father on TikTok, you're talking to me, and you're seeing me. And so I see the comments, and I've learned...
It's a better Sexton choice, so I would say go with you.
I've gathered that people in comments need a lot of clarification. We've sort of lost the plot on media literacy. So let me state this very clearly. My dad is a good father. I like my dad. It's generally positive. He's a good dude. Okay, and let me state that very clearly, because people seem to have trouble with nuance.
Do they really? Yeah, I was going to say I haven't read any of the comments, but I don't. I try not to beat you on camera. You know what I mean? You're much bigger than me now, though, so I really don't know.
That's true. One of these days we'll do I'm not at all prepared to be on camera right now, but one of these days we'll do a reveal. I am actually quite tall. I get that from Mom's side, because her brothers are like giants.
Irish only come in two sizes: tiny and extra large. That's
they're big.
So
they're big.
You're on the tall side. Yeah.
But
well, that's it. I mean, listen, great answer, honest answer. Gonna give me stuff to reflect on, which is really good. But I can only imagine what it was like to grow up in the home of a divorce lawyer with divorced parents, as strange as your mom and I are. And I say that in a pleasant way. Your mom is strange in a good way, and still one of my favorite people. Yeah, I mean, we're very different people, but I don't think he and I are different in uncomplimentary ways. And I think, as someone who really does care about your mom, that, he's a really good match for her. And they've been married at this point much longer than she and I were married. And they really are a good pair. Like, they have a tremendous affection for each other. It's palpable when you're around them. And I can't be anything but happy for that. I don't feel any sense of jealousy. I don't feel any sense of sadness. I love seeing someone who I have a lot of love for be happy and fulfilled and in love. And if that is one of the many things that makes me weird, I guess I'm okay with that, because your mom has always been one of my favorite people. We were very, very young. We were 18 when we met. We were 22 when we got married. We were 24 when we had your brother. So we were young.
Jesus Christ. And you were 26 when you had me.
26 when I had you.
I turned 26 yesterday, and I woke up at 11 today.
Yeah. Well, you would have woke up at 4 a.m. if you'd been 26-year-old me, because you had two kids. So why do you think I wake up at 4 a.m.? It's you fuckers. But yeah, I mean, look, it's we could do a whole episode on this sometime. But look, I think, your mom is very different than me, but we met at a time in your life where all that really matters is that you like each other, you make each other laugh. Your mom always made me laugh. Your mom still makes me laugh. Your mom
She's very
has
funny.
one of the best senses of humor. We were cracking each other up at the wedding, and I have to say, her husband has the same great sense of humor. So the three of us really had a good time. A sense of humor goes a really long way. And when you're like 18, 19 years old and you're just a bundle of hormones and the person makes you laugh and they're good looking, that's all that matters. You think that's all you're going to need forever for the two of you to be perfectly compatible. That was probably short-sighted of us, but, having been 18 and having had two sons who made it through the age of 18, I really don't beat myself up about the fact that I didn't see the future when I was 18 years old. I was not as mature as I thought I was. I sometimes wish that I could go back to my 20s when I knew everything. But yeah, I mean, your mom and I had a chapter together that was, I will never be anything but grateful for, because it produced you and your brother, and the two of you, and raising the two of you has been the best thing in my life. It's been, I love the law. The only thing I probably could say that I love doing more than being a lawyer was being you guys' dad. It was always something that I had tremendous love for doing. I don't know that I was always great at it, but I think that I was young when I became a father. And I'm really grateful I had the opportunity to do it. I can never regret the fact that your mom and I were together, because I'm so grateful for the fruits of that coupling, and that is you and your brother. But I'd like to think your mom feels the same way. I also think your mom knows I'm one of those people that just looks better in the rearview mirror. I think that your mom once said to me, "You're a great ex-husband. A much better ex-husband than you are husband," because the skill set and the resume for an ex-husband is very different than the skill set and resume for a husband. Her current husband is patient. He's thoughtful. He's just a good partner. I'm impatient. I am not, the best when it comes to just like listening to someone talk about the mundanities of their day. And your mom really loves that kind of connection, and she found it with her current husband. She did not have it with me. I still don't have the capacity to do that. So, I take tremendous joy in seeing your mom in her natural environment now, so happy and connected. And, I'm really glad that you and your brother had the experience that you had and didn't have the ugly alternative that I see so many people have in my office. I think those people were a cautionary tale for your mom and I, and we never wanted to be that. We never had a problem we couldn't solve with a phone call. We've never set foot in a courtroom. We always, worked out our differences with each other. We're very different people, but we both really, really love you and your brother. And I think that gave us a lot. It was a superpower of sorts, because we always figured out a way to sort things out. So. Sexton-ism. Here we go. For those of you who are just tuning in, Sexton-isms is a collection of sayings that I say from time to time. Actually, I say so much that my staff jokes and says that I should have a book with all my Sexton-isms in it. So until we get the book, you're going to get me on this segment. But these are things I say so frequently that people think that, I'm a broken record. Something I say fairly often is, you believed in Santa Claus for 8 years. You can believe in yourself for 10 minutes. I say that to clients all the time. Clients often have terrible problems of confidence, and if you haven't figured it out, I'm pretty confident. So I really have to try to bolster their confidence, and I try to really say things that'll shake them out of the fact that they're not confident. And I always try to tell them, listen, you believed in Santa Claus for 8 years, you believe in yourself for the next 10 minutes. It's important to have a high level of self-confidence, not irrational self-confidence, but confidence goes really, really far, and I think it's an absolutely underrated skill. It's something we need to teach people to do. Go out there and improve your confidence. There's so many ways to do it. Talk to somebody. Just talk to a random person. Just strike up a conversation while you're waiting for your coffee at Starbucks, or chat with, somebody who's a retail worker. Just find some opportunity to talk to somebody. Compliment something that someone's wearing. Just get yourself out of your comfort zone and talk to people. In this age of connection, we're staring at our phones all day long. We are losing the ability to confidently communicate with other people. I am so shocked. Yesterday walking on the subway, I had, a couple people come up to me and recognize me from the show, and they were chatting with me. And, I'm so happy to engage with people and talk to people. And, people just are, constantly commenting. I'm like, man, you're such a confident communicator. Just practice. Get out there and talk. You don't learn how to swim by reading books about swimming. You learn how to swim by swimming in a pool. Get in the pool. Get out there, talk to some people, get confident in your presentation and communication skills. That's 99% of what people find appealing about me. What makes me an effective courtroom advocate, what makes me an effective communicator, is that I have a certain level of confidence. Just get out there and get confident, and the only way to do it is to practice. So that's your Sexton-ism. You believed in Santa Claus for 8 years, you can believe in yourself for 10 minutes. Hey gang, thanks so much for spending some time with us again today on Better Call Sexton. Remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It really does help the show. And remember to send your submissions to sextonshow.com. You can send us love mail, hate mail, am I the asshole, segment ideas, anything that you want to. We really do read all of it, and it really does help make the show better. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. We'll see you again real soon.